Shalom. We are preparing to celebrate the anniversary of our country's independence. Many of you will be hearing these words in the hours leading up to July 4th. Sadly, at this very time, we find ourselves as a country locked in an internal debate, even an internal struggle about what America means. And the two sides of this debate are increasingly polarized. On one side of the aisle, people are clamoring for more law and order. They see the main threat to America in the ranks of those protesting. They concede little or no conceptual room to those who are decrying injustices, who are assembling peacefully to petition for the redress of legitimate grievances. From that camp, the vision of America is one of law-abiding citizens besieged by anarchical or nihilistic radicals. For them, the alternatives are either a militarized police force or no safety at all for the general public. From the other camp, there's a focus on the systematic racism of the American establishment, the persistent inequities of American business, American schools, and yes, American police forces, tracking along lines of skin color. That camp seems loath even to entertain the possibility that most police officers strive to maintain respect for civilians even while putting themselves in harm's way. It is in the nature of these polarizing debates that people run to the corners of the arena and eschew moderate positions. The participants in these blood sport debates magnify those news items that support the picture they create when they draw lines between data points and connect the dots, sometimes along the lines of their presuppositions, sometimes even along the lines of their prejudices. This is much to be lamented because instead of producing any healthy synthesis of the various views, in this kind of culture war, people stop seeing the humanity in the other camp and merely caricature those who disagree with them. It becomes a zero-sum game with partisanship proclaiming that it owns a monopoly on patriotism. Into all of this sound and fury, I would like to insert a picture of the Jewish view of citizenship. I will concede that other Jewish spokespeople, either more conservative on the one side or more progressive than myself on the other, could produce other pictures. This is my understanding of my religion. It is an understanding that has helped me to reach out to both my right and to my left, and to attempt to see the good in people. Such an outreach is harder today than it once was. But I have not despaired of our country being able to restore its equilibrium when powerful voices cease legitimizing extremists in the name of building winning electoral coalitions. The first Jewish insight into the tasks of citizenship is that God cares about the communities that we create. Think of the Ten Commandments. There are 2 tablets of the law. The first half of the 10 statements is given over to our relationship with God. Then the second half regulates our relations with our fellow humans. As Jews understand God's will, it is supremely important that we create a society in which human life, in which the marriage bond, in which the legitimate property of all individuals, and in which the pledged word we exchange with each other are all respected. A society in which life is not held dear cannot endure. It will surely implode. A society in which people have no security reverts to a dystopian nightmare. Judaism confirms the finest of secular insights here that those states are intolerable and ultimately unsustainable. This leads to the second Jewish insight. Law and order are good things, but not ends in themselves. They are means to an end. The end being that we become, to use the American language, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. When the system of justice is perverted for the advancement of one segment of the population, and when it is used as a tool to cripple another segment, our Bible speaks of that offense in dramatic terms. God in the Bible is an impassioned God, impassioned on behalf of the fair treatment of the downtrodden. We should also remember that the Jewish notion of the purposes of a state is expressed both in narrative and in law. The Bible's commandments were given at Sinai for a particular reason. The beginning of those divine statements is one of historical relationship, not a statement of philosophy. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of slaves. The Jewish vision of society is compelling for us because we tasted the alternative. Egypt, where we were slaves, was the antithesis of the society that God wants us to create. The narrative serves as a corrective to make sure that we don't get lost in the details of the legal code and forget the big picture. As God had Moses tell the Israelites encamped around Mount Sinai, the purpose of accepting God's offer of a covenantal relationship was so that we would be Mamlechet Kohanim Vegoy Kadosh, Exodus 19. We would be a polity of priests, a holy nation. Let us remember that back in Egypt, the priests were the only group of people who were truly free. All other Egyptians had sold themselves into slavery to survive the 7 years of famine. To be a kingdom of priests, therefore, means that the point of Jewish law is to create a state where true opportunity exists freely for all. There will be unequal outcomes because people have different levels of talent and ability, but there needs to be equal respect for people of every station, high and low, and equal standing before the law, just as we are all equal in the sight of God. In the many centuries of our Jewish national existence under the rule of foreign kings and emperors, we often found it politic to pray for the welfare of the Gentile government. Against the backdrop of that tradition, the great 20th century Jewish scholar, Louis Ginsburg, penned a truly American version of the prayer for our country. While some of its 1920s verbiage is dated today, its celebration of the potential for America to be a spiritual adventure for all peoples makes the prayer worth rehearing and worth heeding anew. When the current mayor of Norfolk, Virginia, Kenneth Alexander, took office, he did me the high honor of inviting me to offer the opening prayer at his first meeting of mayor and city council. I quoted Professor Ginsburg's prayer at that occasion, and I will conclude this meditation by reciting it now. Our God and God of our ancestors, we invoke thy blessing upon our country, on the government of this republic, the President of these United States, and all who exercise just and rightful authority. Do thou instruct them out of thy law, that they may administer all affairs of state in justice and equity, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide amongst us. Unite all the inhabitants of our country, whatever their origin and creed, into a bond of true brotherhood, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and the free institutions which are our country's glory. May this land under thy providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting men and women in peace and freedom, and helping to fulfill the vision of thy prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall men learn war any more, for all, both great and small, shall know the Lord. And we say, Amen. Happy Independence Day. May this be the dawn of a year of greater justice for our United States of America.